The Ukraine war has entered a critical new phase as Russia launches a full-scale offensive targeting the eastern region of Donbas. It's a volatile, contested area that's considered Moscow's stronghold. Chris Livesay reports from Kyiv, where officials are bracing for more missile strikes in other major cities.
The next chapter of the war is here. Russian troops have begun the battle for Donbas, says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. A major development after Russian troops pulled back from Kyiv and turned their attention to the east, setting the stage for major clashes of tanks and heavy artillery unlike anything we've seen since World War II, Ukraine says. But there are no safe havens. Russian airstrikes killed at least 7 people, the first known deaths in Lviv, close to the Polish border, and a refuge for those fleeing the fighting. In Kharkiv, close to the Russian border, shelling offers no rest for the wounded or the medics there to save them. But nowhere is the terror more total than Mariupol. Die-hard defenders holed up in a steel mill refuse to give up, despite Russia's ultimatum, surrender or die. It's a vindictiveness Ukrainians trace to Russian setbacks like the Moskva. This unverified image appears to show Russia's warship struck by Ukrainian missiles in the Black Sea last week. And Chernihiv, a city that was supposed to mark a swift Russian victory north of Kyiv, but instead a triumph for Ukraine, shooting down this Russian bomber last month. It crashed into this home, killing the owner, but shockingly no more, its payload failing to explode when it landed on a neighbor's doorstep. But elsewhere, the bombs worked. This one killing some 50 people in an apartment block, one of the deadliest single strikes of the war. All of a sudden, I was covered in shattered glass, says Larissa. She takes me into her bunker where these women have been hiding for more than a month. Are you afraid that they're going to come back? The war goes on, she says. We don't know what's waiting for us out there.
Joining us now from Ukraine is staff writer for the Kyiv Independent, Asami Terajima. Asami, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says the battle for Donbas has officially begun. What more do we know about Russia's latest moves there?
So for weeks, Russia has been amassing troops and supplies near Donbas, and we've been anticipating this attack for weeks now. So Ukraine is ready, and the soldiers are already there fighting. And Ukraine has already said that we're going to fight until the end, including in cities like Mariupol, where Russia has been laying siege warfare for already a month and a half. So we will fight until the end, and we also expect very difficult months ahead because Russia also will not compromise.
What about Ukrainians who might want to leave now? Russia and Ukraine failed to agree on evacuation corridors for a third straight day as fighting intensified in the east. What more do we know? Are there still safe ways for Ukrainians to leave those areas?
Yes, unfortunately, for the third consecutive days in a row, evacuation corridors have not been agreed on both sides. But we also know that, even if when they agree, they continue to shell and open fire on civilians who are trying to flee the city. So whether we agree on these evacuation corridors or not, we need to evacuate as many civilians from Donbas region as soon as possible, because every single day that this war continues, it becomes even more difficult to evacuate these citizens. And we know from what we saw in Mariupol that Russia continues to target civilian infrastructure and shell residential areas.
Before we let you go, Asami, Russian President Putin honored the Russian military brigade that Ukraine has accused of massacring civilians in Bucha. Has he acknowledged the human rights investigations underway?
He continues to deny all these war crimes, and unfortunately, he hasn't acknowledged all these atrocities, and these brigades that have committed all these war crimes in Bucha, they're expected to come back to Ukraine and do a similar crime in other settlements in Ukraine.
All right, Asami, thank you very much for sharing your reporting with us.
Thank you so much for having me.